Hi, welcome back to the Knitweekend YouTube channel. You have found another full-length episode. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so I've got finished objects, works in progress, and some knitting plans. Grab a project and let's get rolling. Hi, I'm Haley. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Knitweekend, though I will say, quite honestly, those platforms have been neglected lately because I've just been enjoying so much my time on YouTube. And you have found another full-length episode of the Knitweekend podcast. If you've just stumbled upon this, then I'll say, like everybody says, welcome. I am a knitter located in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live with my husband and our two fur babies. One is Sweet Georgia Brown, who is here. She also goes by Georgie. She is trying to get some pets. And then Buster Brown, our dog, who is at the studio with my husband this morning, so you will not be seeing him. It is Sunday. What day is it? June 25th. I don't know that you'll be seeing this episode straight away. You'll probably get it next weekend because there is going to be a fair amount of editing on this episode. Especially toward the end when I share with you about the Intarsia top. I think you all have recalled that I've been doing some ongoing documentation of that process of knitting that. So I will tag that on to the end, but I've got a lot of short videos, and so I don't think that you'll get this for about another week. I am admittedly feeling a little low energy today, hence why you find me on the floor. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I mean partly, but mostly I'm on the floor today because the lighting is very odd. Clouds coming and going, sun coming and going, and I just basically walked around the house and found the best lighting possible for you. So that's where we are, on the floor. I didn't want to, even though I felt low energy today, I didn't want to skip today. So just because I have a lot to share with you, it's been a pretty productive couple of weeks, and yeah, I'm just excited to kind of catch you up on what's been going on knitting wise. So if I'm a little disconnected, it's just because we have some stuff going on with family members being ill right now that it's just kind of got my mind a little askew, but we shall carry on, right? So let's see, I'm not quite sure where I want to start today. I know that I'm going to flip this a little bit because I'm going to do finished objects at the end so that I can include all of that B-roll that I was talking about with the Intarsia top. So I think where I'm going to start today is works in progress. Let's go there first. Okay, so my biggest work in progress right now that is, oh, sorry, cat hair in my eye. My biggest work in progress right now that is very nearly a finished object, you will recognize. This is the most popular pattern, I think, that has ever been made, and this is the Ranunculus. Oh, should we start with what I'm wearing? Let's start with what I'm wearing, because that will lead into this. Okay, what I am wearing is a really quick, easy mod that I did last year. This is knit up in the Hobie bamboo and cotton blend. I can't remember the name of it. It might just be rainbow bamboo. It's a sport weight yarn. This is a mod of the Cumulus blouse. So that blouse was originally designed in mohair, and I just basically took it with a summer sport weight yarn and just quickly knit it up. I didn't really do too many mods. I think just to the raglan, decrease the raglan stitches a little bit, but more or less, the reason that I cast this on last year, I just wanted something really fast. I think it took me a week and a half to knit, if even that. It was very simple, very easy. I wanted a t-shirt that just was open gauge and really breezy to wear on hot summer days, which is what I ended up with. So it's not the fanciest knit by any means, but when I just kind of want something to throw on without a whole lot of thought that is really going to be comfortable, this is one of the things that I reach for during the summer. Here in Nashville, where I live, you know, you're going to get days in the 90s and easily, and wool is just not always comfortable in that time. So that now brings me to my work in progress. This is the Ranunculus. You may be aware of this pattern. There have been a couple people who have knit it. And my inspiration for this was twofold, really. One, I did see a version of this that Bethany from Well Loves Knits did. She also did it in white or off-white. I think she used KFO merino, possibly held double. I got it wrong last time too, so just go look at her Instagram or her YouTube if you want to know exactly what it is that she used. I am knitting this in a cotton. So the yarn inspiration for that was this top. I wanted something similar to this, just a bit more elevated, a bit more sophisticated, that showed off some additional skills that I have gained since I knit this last year. So I still have this on a pretty open gauge. This is knit on an 18 stitch gauge, maybe 18 and a half. I'm not going to share with you a whole lot about this project at this time. I'm going to save that for when I talk about it as a finished object, because I have made a lot of mods to this. But yeah, so it is a cotton yarn. I've shown this to you a few times. It's Papyrus by Fibra and Natura. And I think the recommended stitch gauge is 21 stitches. I'm knitting on 18 and a half. I will go through next time and talk to you about all of the mods that I have made for this project, because there have been quite a few. But right now what I have left to do, a final try on, and then I am going with a folded hem. So I just need to do the final try on and make sure the length is good, and then tack down the hem and we'll be good to go. Though I do reserve the option to change the current bind off on the sleeves to a folded hem as well. So we'll see how that goes. I am using sort of like as a guide my knitting bag of tricks. Ooh, focus. I'm using the knitting bag of tricks as a guide to kind of work through some of these mods on the Ranunculus, and so I'm excited to share with you more next time about what skills I've taken from this book and applied there as a way to kind of level up my knitting. So at the moment, that's my only whip, and like I said, it is nearly done. And I find myself whipless and waiting for yarn to arrive, because I wanted to knit this pattern with this yarn, and I've realized the pattern doesn't speak to the yarn and the yarn doesn't speak to the pattern after I did my swatch, so that plan has been completely canceled. I am waiting on the Pure Olive, Knitting for Olive Pure Silk to arrive to knit this pattern. And so in the meantime, I have been swatching my next few projects, and also I'm going to take my husband's advice and cast on a small gift knit. When I was lamenting my dilemma yesterday, he said, well, why don't you just get started on some gifts? So thought that was great advice, and can work on a small project while I wait for that yarn to arrive. So I'm getting ready to cast on today this Rauma Mitu. This is a yarn that my husband picked out when we were in Norway. It is 50% alpaca and 50% wool. So he has issued me a bit of a challenge here. He wants a beanie from this yarn, which I'm slightly nervous about due to the alpaca content. So I know alpaca stretches. That may mean I may end up with a giant beanie, but I'm going to give it the old college try. I'm thinking that I will knit the beanie a size down from what I think it needs to be. He has really specific requirements for this beanie. He wants it to be kind of the hipster style where it has, comes like right above his ears and has a folded brim to it. So I have knit one other time, the Musselburgh hat, Musselburgh. Musselburgh. We're going with Musselburgh. Hat by Isolde Teague, and that is a swatchless hat that does have a folded brim and will allow me to kind of adjust the size as needed. So I think that's where I'm headed with this. Gonna cast it on later today, and we'll see how it goes. So hopefully next episode you'll see some progress on this hat. It's also fitting because it will be our 7th wedding anniversary in September. So my goal is to give this to him as a gift. And do you know what the traditional 7th wedding anniversary gift is? It is wool, which I could not be more excited about. So I'm just should I make a shopping list for him now? And what to get me? That should be a pretty easy anniversary to buy for me, right? Anyway, so this will be his. It'll be a beanie, and I'll keep you posted on how the sizing goes with it being an alpaca yarn. So that's kind of my knitting plans at the moment. I did come up with another option for the Camellia Fiber Company flax fingering, because this is such a gorgeous yarn. And I think honestly, the best option to let this yarn shine is going to be a stockinette project, which there is a sweater design called the Holiday Sweater. I'll pop it up. And it was designed in this yarn. So I only have 2 skeins of this. That's what's needed for the sweater. So that's the direction that I'm gonna head. But this is an alpaca, linen, and silk blend. So I think that with the longer sleeves on this sweater, I'm probably going to push that back until late summer to allow it to be a transitional piece. So that's kind of what I am pondering and thinking about now. Yeah. So how about on to a finished object? We are gonna go to the Lea Scarf. So as I transition into this one, let me tell you about a great podcast that I just found last week. Her name is Johanna. She is from Germany, the North Sea coast of Germany, and I'm really sorry, the pronunciation here is gonna be awful. Notenkop is her podcast. You'll find it linked below. I have so enjoyed catching up on her back episodes. We have very similar taste in patterns, so if you have enjoyed kind of exploring some of the patterns that I've thrown out there recently, then I highly recommend checking out Johanna's podcast. She has an appreciation for other loops. I've not knit any of their projects yet, but I do have them kind of in my mind for fall. I've got a couple plans. And also Knit. If you recall a few episodes ago, I had a cardigan, the Moulinet cardigan, and that is a Knit pattern. I loved that cardigan. It is one of my favorite things to wear. The fit was perfect. And so I have really admired a lot of her other patterns. However, I had overlooked this one. And this is on her accessory page, on Lynette's accessory page, which I don't often check out. I'm more headed towards sweaters or cardigans or that sort of thing. But if you pop over to her accessory page, you will find the Lea Scarf, which is this great scarf. You can do it in either 2 or 3 colors. And it turns out it's a fantastic scrap yarn project as well. So let me show you what I ended up with. This is my Lea Scarf. Oh, that's my join there. Ignore that. It's not the prettiest, but that's okay. This is my Lea Scarf. And I absolutely love this. You already know that I really enjoy a good tiny scarf. I cannot wait to wear this one. Hold on while I get it situated. There we go. All right, I think we look good. What do you think? So actually my husband helped pick out the colors for this from my stash. And since I am so scatterbrained today, I did just want to take some notes so that I just wasn't rambling on for no reason on this pattern. So Johanna knit this pattern. She showed it on her podcast. I immediately went to Lynette's website to find the pattern and see if I had what was needed to knit it. And I did. I had it in stash. It's so exciting. So from my stash, I was able to pull this. This is a blown yarn. This is the Isager EcoSoft. I knit with this before I started the podcast, so you've not heard me talk about this yarn yet. I love this yarn. It is a blown yarn, but it doesn't have any of the sciencey stuff in it, so none of the, artificial fibers. It is merino, alpaca, and cotton. So if you're looking for a blown yarn, but with, real natural ingredients, this is a great option for you. It is so squishy. You are like knitting with heaven. I get mine at House of Yarn, which is my local yarn shop in Nashville. She does also sell online. Sorry, I just watched a huge fluff from this go flying across the room. Anyway, I've gotten mine at House of Yarn. She does sell this online as well. It only comes in natural alpaca colors. And I think this is the E0 or ES. I don't know, but it's the lightest shade that they make in this. And I enjoyed knitting with this the first time, loved it again the second time. So that was one of the yarns that I used for this project. The other two, you may have heard that I bought a whole lot of colors for my Vertices Unite because I couldn't make up my mind. So we are still working through the Alpaca 2 stash from my Vertices Unite. So I used 2 different colors of Alpaca 2. Both of these are from Isager. So it's an all Isager project. And I think it just turned out beautifully. It is going to go perfect with my fall wardrobe. And actually it looks great with this tee as well, but it's not practical to wear this together, obviously. Okay, so notes on this project. I knit the small version. There's 2 versions. The small version wraps around your neck once. The long version wraps twice. I knit the small. I have not calculated how much yarn I used yet. This was a full skein, so I mean, not that much. I will sometime in the future put my final yarn calcs on Ravelry so that if you want to knit this as a scrap project, you know exactly how much you will need. I knit this on 5mm needles because that is the needle size that was recommended for the EcoSoft yarn, which is my main kind of yarn that I was basing everything off of. I think Lynette recommends a needle size of 4.5mm. Again, as I have mentioned previously, when it comes to scarves and shawls and things like that, I don't do a gauge swatch. I knit the fabric that I like, and then I go from there. So as I was knitting this up on the 5mm, I really liked that fabric. I've not actually checked my gauge on it. I do think I was probably spot on though, because my length knitted up to the exact length that the scarf, that the pattern called for, which is 90 centimeters. This pattern took me like 1 week to knit from start to finish. It was so fun and so addictive. I had never really seen a stitch pattern like this before. I'll either cut the clip and do a zoom in so that you can see it, or I will put a B-roll up so that you can see the stitch pattern really closely. I think this is so cool. I did do some Googling to find out what it is. This is called the 2-color B stitch, B-E-E stitch. And so it does involve knitting into the stitch below, and you kind of work the colors as if it's mosaic knitting. So you're only knitting with 1 color per row, which I really like and makes it much more approachable. And then at the end of the project, you're going back and doing the applied I-cord edge. I had never worked an applied I-cord edge like she suggests in this pattern, but I found it really intriguing. I did have to use double pointed needles, so I would recommend that. I don't think that I mean, I guess you could use a circular. Definitely you could not use straight needles, so because you do need to slide the stitches from one side of the needle to the other. But as I was sitting there knitting it, I thought, you know, everybody knits a Sophie scarf, and if you wanted to have a Sophie scarf with a different color I-cord edge, this method of applied I-cord would actually work really well for that. So just some food for thought there if you were trying to do a scrappy project there. Yeah, and it did kind of take me a minute to figure out exactly how I was going to work that applied I-cord edge. It's not necessarily the most beginner friendly. So this is not what I would say if you're gonna knit a first project, probably not this one. This one does require just a little bit more thought on the edge there. And I would definitely knit it again. In fact, I have a couple folks in my family who I could really picture wearing a similar scarf. I'm kind of going in my head and picking out the color schemes that I would use for them. And since it only took a week, then, you know, I figure like that's pretty good. As far as blocking this project, what I did to make picking up stitches for the edge easier is I blocked it twice. So I blocked it once when I finished the main body of the scarf, and then I blocked it again before I picked up the stitches. This is one of my favorite things to do anytime I have to pick up stitches for any length, not like an underarm, but you know, along a button band or something along those lines. I like to do a pre-block. It just makes the edge lace so much nicer and makes it so much easier to pick up. So if you struggle picking up long lengths of stitches, try blocking it first, see if that makes it easier for you. It certainly does for me. All right, so that tiny scarf finish object leads me into my Instagram saves for this week, and this is going to be a tiny scarf roundup for you. I think that these are great to knit during summer when you're traveling. You don't need a lot of yarn, and then they'll be ready for you in the fall to wear, or in the holidays for gifts. So favorite tiny scarves. The first one that I am going with, my iPad will cooperate. This is from Yeti Knits. This is the Pave scarf. It's just a fun textured scarf. It looks like maybe slightly basket weave vibe with some yarn over eyelets. The next one is Anne Wenzel Sola scarf. I think this would be like a nice answer to the Sophie scarf, or it's Anne's answer to the Sophie scarf anyway. So it looks like a little bit of broken rib there, and those increases look like they'd be fun to work. So add that one to the list. The next one is the, let's see, what's the name on the Martha shawl. This is another fun cable scarf, reminiscent of the Laulu shawl from Sari Nordland that I showed you in the 2 episodes ago in the Clover Green. So this one is very reminiscent of that, which I love that pattern, so I think I would like this one as well. And then, of course, you've got the Vertices Unite. Love that this comes in a large and a small option. I have knit the small option, which goes nicely just over a sweater or tucked into a jacket. The next one that I really like is, I keep on saying the next one. Another one that I really like is Butterflies Flying Out of Your Stash Box. This one I think is cool because it's designed to be knit out of the same yarn that you've knit your sweater out of, kind of as a companion piece if you have any leftovers. So it's mostly garter stitch with a little bit of cable and lace detail on it. It's very cool. Finally, the Funfetti shawl. This one is Intarsia, and it looks like you would only use 2 different colors at one time. So maybe this is a really good approachable Intarsia project. This one is by Max the Knitter, and love all of those fun, vibrant colors in there. It also looks like it would be a great scrap project. So that's my tiny scarf roundup, and I will publish a guide on my Instagram so that you can find those easily going forward. And now we will move on to finish object number 2, which I kind of stacked at the end of the video because I know that this one has been much more anticipated. this format, I think I'm gonna handle this is I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of the project here and tell you my general impressions, and then I'm going to go through, I was sent a lot of questions about the process of knitting this project, and I have shot some B-roll over time that I think will answer many of those questions. So I'm going to edit that in kind of through the end of the episode, so I hope that you will stick along and watch all that. Depending on the length of time, I think the time will be reasonable. If it starts to look like it's going over an hour, then I may break that out into a second episode. But anyway, let's talk Intarsia top, shall we? This is the Intarsia top. It's so pretty. I am obsessed. I've only had an opportunity to wear it once because I just finished it last weekend. It's not really a workwear for me, but I did get to wear it on my coffee and knitting date with Kat and Victoria last weekend. I pushed myself really hard to get it finished and blocked in time for that. So overall impressions of this project, you have to know I'm obsessed. Also, can you kind of see the color similarities here? Yeah. You have to know I'm obsessed with this project. I was in a knitting funk before I started it. I had so much fun with this project. It really helped that Hannah from Hannah G Knits and I cast this on together and just kind of cheered each other on the whole time. She did finish hers before I finished mine. I had to wait for a yarn resupply. So anyway, I'm gonna just show you a couple things. I'm gonna put it down so that my arm doesn't get tired of holding it up. It is two-sided, the front and the back, or the front and the back. It's completely reversible, which is very cool. So the designer of the Intarsia top is Anna Husemann. She is a German, I think she's a German designer. And this pattern's actually been out a couple years. So I've had it on my list for at least a year to knit, and I just thought, you know what, this is the year to give it a go. So one of the questions that I was asked, and this is from Hannah. Hannah asked what was what inspired me to do Intarsia in this project. I'm not the best at stranded knitting, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to have fun colors in my knitting. So I thought, let me try Intarsia and see if that's more up my alley. And I originally discovered Anna Husemann's patterns in a pom-pom magazine. I didn't have the magazine, but I saw it on their social because of course I follow them on Instagram. She had a lovely, lovely scarf knitted in a really unique yarn from Ito that I have never seen in person, but seems just incredibly interesting. Anyway, so she published that scarf through Pom Pom, and that's how I discovered her. I went to her Instagram and saw this tank top and immediately saved it for a future knit. So it took over a year to decide to cast it on. The yarn that I've used, the main color is the recommended yarn, which is Pascuali Puno. This is an alpaca and cotton blend. It's a fingering yarn. I've held it double for a DK weight. And then the contrast yarns are, again, all of my Alpaca 2. Sorry, I'm trying to look at where I'm pointing. So if my eyes are wandering, that's why. This is all of my Alpaca 2 left over from my Vertices Unite overkill. But anyway, so I had several colors of that, and I've listed them all out on Ravelry, so you can find all of the colors there. The pattern calls for 3 natural colors, 1, 2, and 3, and then also 3 dyed colors, 1, 2, and 3. So I've chosen colors that are pretty similar to the original pattern with the exception of the green. She did not use a green in the original pattern. It's what I had in stash from my Vertices Unite, so that's what I've used. I did make a couple mods to this pattern. One mod that I made is that I started with a provisional cast on to a knitting cord. That was because it's knitted bottom up. I always get uncertain about my bottom up length. And so I thought if I go with a provisional cast on to a barber cord, then that's gonna be, you know, a surefire way to be able to get the length that I want. Now, I will share one caveat on that. And I'm kind of okay with it. It somewhat looks intentional, so we're just gonna roll with it. I did end up with a tension issue on the bottom row of the garter stitch. I'm gonna hold it up, cover my face so that you can hopefully see it. So I don't know if you were able to tell, but this bottom row of garter is a bit wider. It's off tension from the other rows. It kind of makes a nice little like barrier on the hem, so I'm not gonna stress about it. I thought about going back in and trying to even up those stitches, but I'm not doing it. We don't need to spend the time on that. So that is one issue that I did have with the cast on, doing it to a cord. So just keep that in mind if that's something that is concerning to you. The other mod that I made is for the straps. It is originally a spaghetti strap with an I-cord. I didn't want to do that for a couple of reasons. One, the main yarn is a plant fiber. I am super conscious of stretching in plant fibers. Your plant fibers are going to stretch. They just are. That's what they do. So I didn't want to have an I-cord, a single I-cord strap, because I knew that that would lead to more stretching. I felt like the strap needed a bit more support. Second thing is I want to be able to wear a bra. So I decided to make a mod, which you can find the instructions for that mod on my Ravelry. I laid them all out, mostly for me so that I could remember what to do. Okay, we're getting hot. We have to take this off. I laid out the, sorry, I'm starting to sweat. I laid out the mod on Ravelry so that I could remember what to do when I went back for the other 3 straps. But essentially, I stopped decreasing for the armhole and just continued decreasing for the neck, just at a slower frequency, and ended up with 12 stitches on the strap. Continued to knit the I-cord on the strap and also the garter stitch. Because of that, I did end up knitting the strap, all the straps in the main color. I just felt like that was a better look for me. So those are the mods that I made to this. Other than that, I knit it true to the pattern. Now this is knitted flat. Most Intarsia, not most, but a lot of Intarsia is, because knitting Intarsia in the round can be quite tricky. So the seaming method that I used on the garter stitch, which I think turned out quite nicely. One side's better than the other. Let me show you the good side. Okay, so this is my seam. It's just a little thicker, and this is what it looks like on the inside. So the seaming method that I used is one that I actually found on Patty Lyon's Instagram. She had a super brief reel that showed how she likes to seam garter stitch, and so that was what I followed. Basically, in my head, the way that this goes is into the smile on one side and into the frown on the other side. Or else it's reversed. I don't know. You can go out to her Instagram and find that video. Very, very brief. It's a promo for a class she's got online, but I just kind of took it and ran with it. And it created such a beautiful seam, and was super easy to work. So I feel like I've gotten over the fear of seaming. I've now seamed 2 projects. One was seaming cables and then seaming this. So I feel like we're good to go on seaming. Do I want to necessarily seam every project? No. If there's a project that I want to knit that does have seaming, is that going to hold me back anymore? Also no. So I feel good about that. Yeah. Okay, what else about this project before we get into kind of some of the more process of knitting this? I knitted this on 3.75 millimeters, and that is what I used to get gauge that the pattern suggested. I knit a size 1, used a provisional cast on, and then my bind off, I did a 3 needle bind off, just to have it provide a little more support. So Those are the highlights on kind of the overall Intarsia top. Yeah, so let's get into some of the questions that I was asked. Good morning. Just about to head off to work, but wanted to give you a quick update on the Intarsia top that I'm knitting along with Hannah G Knits. Okay, so first time doing Intarsia. We had a little FaceTime cast on session the other night, during which Hannah very patiently waited while I taught myself how to do a provisional cast on to waste yarn or a barber cord. So that went really well. I did get cast on during our time. I got my first couple of rows in, which is exciting. I did this because, quite honestly, one, I always struggle with bottom-up knits to get the right length, and two, pretty sure I don't have enough yarn in my main color, so I'm going to potentially knit that in one of the contrast colors that I'm using, which I think will be fine. Anyway, so provisional cast on, and then I've started with the Intarsia. Shall I show you how far I am? Just started the Intarsia section last night. I've not had much knitting time this week, but this is how far we are. So we're just on contrast color number 1, and I think it looks pretty tidy. You start with just a big long block, and then you take it in a couple stitches at a time to start. I have 3 bobbins going at the moment. It won't be long before I am up to 6 bobbins, which I admit is pretty terrifying. Oh, you can also see the provisional cast on that I did here. Hopefully that works out well when I add the ribbing later on. I have one other realization about this project this morning, and that is despite the fact that, sorry, sun's coming in. Despite the fact that the recommended yarn is 2 strands of fingering held together, I think the yarn amounts noted in the pattern are actually for 1 strand of DK, because she says you can use either 1 strand of DK or 2 of fingering. I may have wrongly assumed that because the recommended yarn that she used for the sample was 2 strands of fingering, that was the yarn weight. So I've realized my error. I checked the website where I ordered my main color. It's still in stock. It is undyed, so I don't think that dye lot should be much of an issue there. And I guess I need to get that order placed. Anyway, so that's the update on the Intarsia top, day 2 of the Intarsia top. Have a good one. Okay, so we are early morning, day 3 of this project, and I joined the other color. This is still Isager Alpaca 2. This is the colorway gingerbread. Don't worry about that little hole. I'll get that with a duplicate stitch. It's just where I had a funky joint. Actually, I'm gonna fix that and I'll tell you why. I have enjoyed this color, loved it when it was in the hank with the other colors, but now I'm feeling like it's just too dark, it's too heavy. That's okay, lots of color options because of my vertices unite and having ordered way too many yarns. So, new plan is we're going with this color, and this is Desert Rose, no, Desert Rock. My other colors that we're going with for this project are Veil, and I think this is called Straw. So I think I'm gonna be much happier for a summer knit with those brighter colors. The colors are a bit funky. It is currently 5:30 in the morning, and these are just with overhead lights. So anyhow, okay, gonna rip back. Okay, so we did swap out the color. I did, listen to me, royal we. And this is the Desert Rock. It's looking pretty dark. It's almost sunset here, so looks a little darker than it actually is, but it's kind of like a dark, dusty rose. But I'm much more pleased with that. And then the next step is going to be joining yet another bobbin for our white neutral. So I am putting this down for the night. I'm a little tired and I don't want to mess it up. Highly addictive knit though, really enjoying it. Okay, good morning. Doing some early morning Saturday knitting on my Intarsia top. Things are going, I think, fairly well. I have now my main color plus 3 different contrast colors. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 bobbins. I'll show you how I'm knitting this. I am sitting at my table knitting, which is unusual because normally I make a big hole in the couch cushions, but I'm finding that having all the bobbins spread on the table is definitely the easiest way. My hair is doing something crazy, ignore that. This is real life. But I did just make a mistake. I'm blaming it on having not even had my first cup of coffee yet. I missed 4 stitches of a contrast color in my last right side row. So do not feel like ripping back. These are abstract shapes. I'm just gonna go with it. I looked at the pattern and I'm going to, this particular shape kind of mirror images itself. So I am just going to eliminate the same 4 stitches later on in the shape so that it looks even. Nobody will ever know, right? Okay, let me show you what this looks like on my table. Hi, good morning. If I'm saying good morning a lot, come on. That's because it's my alone time or best knitting time. But today I am out for a morning walk with Buster at our park in our neighborhood. And, bud, come on. And got a message from Stacy yesterday. She was asking about the Intarsia top. So just wanted to offer a few ideas on her question. Bud, heel. Multitasking. Anyway, what Stacy asked was, is the Intarsia top acceptable or a good idea for an advanced beginner? And here's what I would say to that. And what I told Stacy and what I'll tell the rest of you is that Intarsia itself, the technique is not difficult, really at all. But what can be a challenge are the number of bobbins. So I think Intarsia just takes patience. And also you have to be willing to weave in maybe a lot of ends on this pattern in particular. So if you think about it, every different break in the color is a fresh bobbin. So at the moment I'm up to 9 bobbins. So that means each time I introduce a new bobbin, that's a new end to weave in. So you've got to have patience. You have to be okay with weaving in ends if you're using multiple bobbins. And really, I'm finding that it's easiest to work it on a flat surface. So this is not a couch in front of the TV project. This particular project, I'm kind of struggling with one of the geometric shapes to get it right, just because it's completely abstract. So having to really pay attention to my stitch count on that particular shape. That also means that I think I can fudge it a little bit, which I have been. And I don't think you'll notice. It's a little lumpy in places, but I think that'll block out. My yarn that I'm using is either a cotton alpaca blend or alpaca and wool. So I think both of those will block fairly decently and take care of any of those imperfections. We'll see. So anyway, that's my thoughts on whether the Intarsia top and just Intarsia in general is a good idea for an advanced beginner. And yeah, I never know how to sign these things off. I'll just talk to you later. So it's been a few days since I've done any of this recording or chatting to you about my Intarsia top. That's because I ran out of yarn. I had to order more. The yarn came in yesterday, or I got it out of the mailbox yesterday. And I am back working on this top again. I can honestly tell you this project has been so fun and entertaining that I missed it in the past few days. So the front of the top took me about a week to complete, which I have. I've even woven in the ends, which was no small task. And now I am starting on the back. And luckily the back starts off pretty easily with just a nice rectangle of Intarsia. So anyway, missed the project, glad to be back at it. One of the questions that I got was about bobbin organization. How did I organize my bobbins? I will say that is a piece of this that does take a little bit of patience to figure out. Ooh, my bangs are doing something really weird today. All right, well, ignore that. Let's talk bobbins. So my husband kindly agreed to take some B-roll for me of my bobbin organization, which I will show you now. Basically, as I worked the row, I found a way to weave the bobbins in and out of each other to avoid tangles. Then as I got toward the end of the row, I'd wind all those bobbins up and do a little fancy flip maneuver to get lined up for the next row. It does take some patience. That's just part of it. When you work with 9 bobbins, it's a lot. And working with that many, you'll notice I'm working at the table. I just found it easiest to have a flat surface to lay them all out on. It's been a minute since I filmed anything for you about the Intarsia top. We are on week 3 of the project and I'm very nearly done. I had to press pause for week 2 because after finishing my first side, I was out of yarn. The new yarn has arrived. The second side has been swimming along. I've just finished one of the triangle panels and I have one left to go. A couple thoughts. I tried a different method for my SSK decreases on the first panel. I'm not 100, it's the dog chasing his tail. I'm not 100% pleased with it, but I'm rolling with it. The decreases are worked on the wrong side of the material. And this SSK method looks very neat on the wrong side, but is a bit more pronounced on the, This SSK method looks a little bit neater on the side that you work it on, but is more pronounced on the opposite side, which in this case, it's more pronounced on my right side of my work. So I'm not going to rip it back. I'm going to keep it. I'll do the other side, the other panel the same way, just so that it looks cohesive. And I don't think it's gonna be super noticeable, but just not 100% pleased on that. The other thing is I did a strap mod. I can't remember if I've told you about this, but it is a spaghetti strap. I decided to modify it so that I could wear it more easily with a bra. And I did that by stopping the armhole decreases and only knitting decreases on the neckline. Those details are on my Ravelry. The only problem with this is it's been about a week and a half since the last time I knit a strap on this tank top, and I couldn't remember what I did and didn't read my notes correctly. So if you're going to mod something, take some time, reread your notes. I ended up ripping back not a whole lot of rows, maybe just like 6 or 7 rows on this strap because I was like, wait a minute, this is all wrong. I had a moment of panic where I counted all of the stitches in different places in the body a few times to see where I had gone wrong. And then I realized, oh, it was only meant to decrease for the neck. And here I've been decreasing for both the neck and the strap. So got that figured out. Was not a total loss. Just about 10 minutes of panic this morning, but back up and running and on we go. Bonus of this whole, documentation of me knitting this tank top is that you all are going to see the real me early on a Saturday morning, just as I am. But anyway, so I have just finished weaving in the ends. Jana messaged me to ask if she needed to crowdfund therapy for me. And I have to say that I actually found weaving in the ends satisfying. That's pretty shocking. That's not, I'm not opposed to weaving in ends, but I'm never gratified by it. And I think the reason for that on this project is that by weaving in the ends, you're actually closing up little gaps on the edges of your shapes. And there's something about, oh, just let me do one more shape, and get it done. Kind of like when you're knitting rows of color or a cable repeat. So weaving in the end's not so bad for me. It does take patience, but that's okay. So I have not resolved my provisional cast on at the bottom of the tank top yet. And I think what I'm actually going to do is join my straps and then block it and decide on how long to make it, and if I want to do more garter or if I can go straight into the rib. I get really nervous knitting bottom up, one, because I'm just never sure about the length. And then on plant fibers, I get nervous because I find that it tends to stretch. Oh, my tea is ready. I get really nervous with plant fibers because they tend to stretch, and I've just not had good luck. So I think my plan at this point is to join the straps and block it, and then make a decision about the length after it's blocked. So we'll see how that goes.
Anyone else stare at their garments while it's blocking if they're worried about color fastness and color bleeding, or is that just me?
I have a goal to get this done and wear it on Monday because we are doing a little coffee and knit. So things left to do: dry. I have no control over that. Let's hope it doesn't rain. Number 2, seam. And number 3, do the hem. Because I think I'm gonna be a rebel and do the hem in the round after I seam it. That's the plan. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted. Sunday, it is Father's Day. Oh, there's a lot of junk in the background. You're just gonna have to ignore that, real life. I am working on the bind off for my tank top. Determined to get this done today because I'm gonna wear it with my knitting date tomorrow. A couple things about the bind off. I am doing a tubular bind off with 2 setup rows of slip stitches, and then I decided just to use 1 strand of yarn, even though I've knit everything else with 2 strands held together. I have found, especially with like a really dense or cotton yarn, when you use the setup rows, it can make the bottom of the bind off a bit bulky and stand out a bit. So taking it down to just the 1 strand makes it not have that kind of extra bulk at the bottom. Anyway, so I have about a quarter of the bind off left to do today, which I can definitely accomplish, and then I'll be ready to wear. Francesca asked me a bunch of great questions. She and Millie had one similar though, and that is, how does the difficulty compare to other charted projects like either stranded colorwork, Fair Isle, or lace? The chart is so much easier than lace, Francesca, so much easier, because it's really just 2 colors. You either knit in one color or you knit in the other. So the chart's very simple to read. And Millie, as far as if it's easier than stranded colorwork or Fair Isle, yes, I'd say definitely yes. Does it take a little patience to work with that many bobbins? Yeah, more than Fair Isle, but you don't have to worry about tensioning like you do in those projects. And I just found that I could work the row much faster. In this project in particular, you're dealing with abstract shapes. So if you miss a stitch, no big deal. Just kind of fudge it on the next row. Francesca also wants to know if it was worth it. Yes, 1,000 times yes. I was in a major knitting funk before I did this project, and it kind of snapped me out of it. It was engaging without being too hard. Now I will say the one thing is, like I've mentioned in some of the other questions, with Intarsia, patience is key. Did you see that dust bunny just fly? It's pretty gross. And so Francesca also wanted to know, I mentioned that I'm knitting it at my kitchen table, and how many bobbins could I do while sitting on the sofa? I'd say no more than 3 bobbins, which is 2 colors for me comfortably. You might ask Hannah this question. She might have a different answer. She might have used a different technique there. But don't worry, Francesca, I've got you, because in that tiny scarf roundup, there's a pattern by Max the Knitter that is the Funfetti shawl. I think you only have to work 2 Intarsia colors at a time, and guess what? It's all in garter stitch, so you should check that one out. All right, I'm being a little lazy on this one. I'm not gonna set up the tripod, but I'm gonna try to show you one-handed. So you've just seen the 1 million ends that I had to weave in for this project. That is not an exaggeration, but luckily I kept my sanity, and actually it was kind of fun. Here's what it looks like woven in. And I think it was fun in the same way that, like, fun may not be the right word. It wasn't painful because it actually is like kind of an art form. I feel like the inside of an Intarsia project is actually where the like true skill and artistry comes from, to be able to have like a lovely shape on the inside as well as the outside. So it was somewhat satisfying to get those ends woven in, and I kept on just being like, one more shape, I gotta just do one more shape, and eventually it got there. Now, if you don't weave in ends on your regular sweater projects, Intarsia may not be for you. You do have to weave in the ends, it's not optional, because there is a little gap that is created when you add in your other contrast color, and you do need to weave in the ends so that you close up that gap. And there's a bit of a technique and an artistry to that, which I can't really explain. You just kind of have to figure it out as you go. My first shapes that I did were not nearly as nice and neat as some of the later ones. Here's one of the earlier shapes. And then one of the later shapes. So you can tell I definitely improved over time with that. But I still have my sanity, Jana. Another question that I was asked is, would I knit Intarsia again? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes, I would. I've been dreaming up so many things that I want to knit in Intarsia. I'm thinking a pillowcase would be really great. You'd still have to weave in the ends on the back, of course, as I mentioned, but it would be a great adaptation. I think, you know, a shawl, as long as you knit it, woven your ends really neatly, would be fantastic. Just anything that's basic garter stitch. Max Serum's pattern that I've mentioned a couple times now. What's really cool is my mother-in-law is an abstract artist, and so I've kind of toyed with the idea of asking her to create a geometric pattern for me to translate into Intarsia charts, which then I could put on a pillowcase. I think that would be super fun. Maybe a scarf, who knows? Thanks so much for joining me on this Intarsia top deep dive and my tiny scarf bonanza. I hope you found this useful or inspiring, or you found something that you might enjoy. If you still have questions about the Intarsia top, feel free to leave them below. I know this is not a really popular pattern, so hopefully this demystifies it a little bit for you. But if I missed something that you're just itching to know, glad to answer. Also, just a reminder that next episode is going to be kind of more focused on the Ranunculus. I'm going to do some myth busting, and also, I guess, be a review of me working through Patty Lyon's knitting bag of tricks. So that episode may be a little bit more for the nerds, the knitting nerds out there, but I'm sure there will be other wonderful things along the way as well. So anyway, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.